You know, there's an old joke that goes like, if you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual, and if you speak 1, you're American. Well, surprisingly enough, I did some research, and it turns out that about half of our presidents actually did speak more than 1 language. So, in this video, I thought I would show you which presidents spoke some unique languages, and of course, which ones spoke the most. So, let's learn about language.
Abi Kibar, Trump, Sarkar.
I take pride in the word Ich bin ein Berliner.
Now, because America was a British colony, it's not a surprise that all of our presidents have spoken English. But surprisingly enough, it turns out that a lot of our first presidents actually spoke Greek and Latin fluently as well. In fact, a lot of presidents like John Tyler, Rutherford B. Hayes, James K. Polk, James Buchanan, James A. Garfield, and James Madison actually spoke Greek and Latin fluently. However, out of all the James that were fluent in these classical languages, it's quite interesting because James Madison was fluent in Hebrew as well. Now, another president that spoke an interesting language was Herbert Hoover.
And the problems of Europe have both their bright and their dark sides.
And along with the other guys, he spoke Latin, but he also spoke a bit of Mandarin Chinese. Around the turn of the century between 1899 and 1900, he lived in China with his wife, and they both took some time to learn a bit of Chinese. And it's quite interesting because when they wanted to have private conversations while in public, they would actually use Chinese instead of English or even Latin. And admittedly, he didn't speak Chinese fluently, but he used it whenever he could and tried to keep it alive by speaking with his wife. Now, another interesting scenario is when former President Martin van Buren actually was the first president that didn't speak English as his native language. He was from a Dutch village near New York City, which used to be called New Amsterdam, and he didn't actually learn English until he went to school, making him the first and only president to not speak English as a native language. Now, when it comes to the turn of the 20th century, when things like industrialization have just started, our first president in the 1900s, Theodore Roosevelt, actually spoke quite a few languages fluently. Along with French, he also spoke Italian and German, and he oversaw a lot of projects internationally. And during a time when America was ever so expanding, he used these languages to conduct diplomatic affairs abroad. Now, later on in America's history, with Teddy Roosevelt's 5th cousin, Franklin D. Roosevelt, we actually had our last multilingual president in all of our history to date.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke French and English fluently. It turns out that Franklin D. Roosevelt was America's last president to be fluent in 2 languages, and since then, presidents have only spoken bits of languages, or had a reading knowledge. Now, to answer the big question, which president spoke the most languages, it actually goes back to the very beginning of our history, with 2 presidents. Thomas Jefferson was known for his unique abilities to speak multiple languages, and he was fluent in languages like French, Greek, Italian, Spanish, Latin, and even Old English. And some research shows that he also studied languages like Arabic and Irish. Now, Thomas Jefferson wasn't necessarily fluent in all of these languages, but he mostly had a reading knowledge in languages like Spanish and Old English. And it's quite interesting that 200 years ago, presidents studied the same languages that I do today, with the same resources. When it comes to fluency, no president has spoken more languages than John Quincy Adams. America's 6th president, John Quincy Adams, was able to speak almost 8 languages fluently: English, French, Dutch, German, Italian, Greek, Latin, Spanish, and even Russian. Now, at a time when America was just born, John Quincy Adams was most likely to speak with people from dozens of countries around the world, and to this date, no president has been able to speak as many languages as John Quincy Adams. Quite interestingly, there's an increasing trend of American presidents able to speak conversational Spanish, as 13% of the country is Hispanic or Latin American.
Sean ricos o pobres, este es el sueño americano.
However, at the same time, the trend of monolingual presidents is also increasing, which is quite interesting to think about because no country has more immigrants than America, meaning that this might be the most useful country to know a foreign language in, meaning that this is probably the country where it's most useful to know another language. Now, researching this made me wonder, what would it be like if we had a multilingual president in the modern, connected world? Would conflicts be able to be resolved in other people's native languages? Would the multilingual residents of the United States be able to hear their president in their own language? And perhaps would that in turn inspire more pride into a multinational America? Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe for more, and I hope you learned something about language. Bye!